Samuel Doddridge Killen. Samuel Doddridge Killen was born February 16th, 1823, and died April 5th, 1880. The following story was originally told by Fanny Killen Norwood. Samuel D. Killen was the first son of John Killen and Louisa Parrott, and was born February 16th, 1823, in South Carolina. As a young boy, he came to Georgia about 1830 or 1831 with his parents and lived at Hickory Grove. He was reared a mile from the courthouse in Perry on the west side of the bridge across from Big Indian Creek. In 1843, he married Sophia Ann Baskin, and 7 children were born to them. Samuel was admitted to the practice of law in Houston and adjoining counties in the 1840s, and was in high standing in Houston Lodge of Masonry. He built a home in Perry in which he lived until death claimed him. The home was built in 1852 and still stands today as Watson Hunt Funeral Home. He gave a building lot and $500 to build the Houston Female College. He had a very lucrative law practice, but when the tocsin of war was sounded, he was among the first to answer the call and went as orderly sergeant of the Southern Rights Guards under Captain John A. Hauser. They left Perry March 18, 1861, rendezvoused in Macon, and organized the 1st Georgia Regiment, which was the first regiment of the war. James Ramsey was colonel, and President Davis ordered them to Pensacola, Florida, where they served in infantry and siege artillery. From there, they were ordered to Richmond, Virginia. In retreat from Laurel Hill, Samuel was very sick and not able to stay in the march, and hence dropped out of ranks. My brother was with him from the time he left Perry till he got back home. When my brother missed him, he immediately turned back and found him by the roadside too ill to go on. Hence, both men were taken by the enemy and were taken prisoners. They were taken to Washington, and we never knew where he was for a long time. A friend of my father, Colonel de Graffenreid of Macon, by accident got in possession of a July New York Herald, in which was a speech that my father made. This herald was sent to my mother by a courier from Colonel de Graffenreid, and that was our first news of his whereabouts. In another paper of August 2nd, 1861, we find this: great exertions were made by the Hessians to induce Colonel S.D. Killen of Southern Rights Guards to take the oath of allegiance, but he told them he was a loyal citizen of a foreign country and would be shot or rot in a dungeon before he took such an oath. The colonel, we are informed, made the Hessians a hot secession speech before he turned his back on Grafton. It is presumed he will soon be exchanged and released from his parole and obligations. This speech was published in the New York Herald in July 1861. To add another article from the same paper, the New York Herald of July 23rd states that unworthy friend S.D. Killen of Southern Rights Guards was a prisoner at Washington. The Northern Press speaks in high tones of Sergeant Killen's ethics. He was offered his liberty if he would swear allegiance to the despotism of Lincoln, and he indignantly spurned the base proposition. May he soon be exchanged and have the privilege of trying the Yankees another time in the battlefield. He was sent from Washington to Grafton toward the close of that year. He was paroled and sent back to camp at Monterey and soon came home. He suffered many hardships as a prisoner. During the time he was at home on parole, he served a term in the legislature, or maybe more than one term. As soon as he was exchanged, which was somewhere about 1863 or 1864, he formed a company made up of old men over 60 and boys under 16. He was made captain. That was the limit age of what males were left to take care of the women and children. They marched from Perry, Georgia to Savannah and then north when fighting was going on. He was again taken prisoner and carried to Camp Chase and came near dying from hardships, horrible treatment, and disease. For months after the war was over, he remained in prison, and we thought he was dead. At last, after weary waiting, he got home, but never was a well man again. He was the first judge of the city court of Houston and served until his health completely gave way. He was paralyzed, and a second stroke caused total blindness for 1 year. He died in April 1880 while the Superior Court was in session in Perry. The entire bar acted as escort to the cemetery. The Masonic ceremony was used, and the order he loved so well laid him away in his last resting place at the age of 57 years.